Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another star-studded Linux 18 TosCasts podcast. And I must say, we have another terrific full show lined up. We have lots of guests. So at this time, let me transfer the microphone to my good co-host, Spatry, and he will get us started. Take it away, Spatry.
All right. Yeah, that's right. It's another fabulous TosCast podcast with the Linux A-Team, and we've got a special lineup for you guys today. First, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Alan Pope with Canonical, and he has joined us today. We also have from Australia, Infinitely Galactic. We have Pingcasts from Linux Soup with us today. And then we have a newcomer, SysAdmGirl. She's doing tutorials for beginners, and she has over 14 years of experience, systems administration and that sort of thing. Welcome, one and all. And back to you, Total OS today.
Thank you, Spatry. First of all, I have to say a little something to Mr. Pope. First of all, welcome aboard the show, Mr. Pope. It is an honor to have a... Thank you. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, there was a nice comment on Spatry's channel. I think the comment was something like, hey, I like it when Tos says this word. So I will say it to you, Mr. Pope. Mr. Pope, what's up? Yes, in fact, 2 weeks ago, one of my friends said, hi, yes, yeah, 2 weeks ago, one of my friends said, hey, what computer system do you use? What's up? No, moving on. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Alan. Welcome, Tanya. And by the way, Tanya, your videos are terrific. They are short.
Oh, thank you so much.
They are short. Yeah, they are short to the point that even a Windows dummy like myself can understand. Thank you.
They're meant for everybody.
I know. Okay. I guess let me get started with some questions about Ubuntu. Alan, last year when Ubuntu first released Unity to the world, it wasn't particularly well received by the, at least some in the Linux community. I myself like it then. I love it now. I have Unity installed in 3 of my machines. But I guess my question is, how did Canonical react, to those criticisms? And what do you think, based on that, what do you think is the future of Ubuntu with Unity?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I'm actually, despite my introduction, I'm not actually a developer. I'm an engineering manager at Canonical, but...
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
My bad.
It's not a problem. The thing about the way that Canonical reacts is we're a bunch of individual developers. There's over 500 people who work for Canonical now. And so everyone reacts in a different way. Some people will sympathize with the reaction to Unity. Some people will vehemently disagree with it. Everyone's got their own opinion. So I think it really depends who you ask. Personally, I can see why people resisted Unity, and I can see why people got upset when we switched to Unity as the default desktop. However, I have my own opinions about the fact that where I see Ubuntu and Unity going in the future. And so I'm kind of in it for the long game. I can see that we've had a few bumps and perhaps a couple of releases haven't been top-notch, but we're addressing that with 12.04. And a lot of the reaction we've taken on board, and we've listened to people, and we know people have complained about certain things like the menus and multi-monitor support and the way the launcher behaves and stuff like that. And we do listen to that, and I know, because I often sit with the designers in our London office, that they do take that on board, and they are planning for the next release, 12.04, and the release beyond that, and beyond that, into next year. So in short, we're all human, and we take it on the chin, but we're looking to improve things.
Okay. By the way, I do have a suggested name for the next release. How about Quantum Quail? It's just a thought. But
Quail, yeah.
Yeah.
There's not that many animals that begin with Q, so...
No. In fact, I was thinking about this last night. The Q. Well, there's the Q character from Star Trek, but that's not the same, though. But, okay. That's a fair enough answer. I do have one more question before I forget, and this is something that really kind of kind of gets to me. One
Go on.
second.
Tell me how you feel.
Okay, my question is this. Why is it so freaking impossible to create a simple Linux-based screencast recorder with a simple on-off switch?
Yeah, that's a pain, isn't it? I've been using various tools for doing screencasting for some time, and I've tried them all, and in various ways, every single one of them suck.
Thank you, sir. It's not just
Yeah, you're totally right. I don't think anyone's written a perfect screencasting app. There is one that I'm involved in terms of helping the developer testing and that, and it's called Kazam, Kazam.
Kazam for the win. You got it.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and there's some features in there that I've suggested to the developer David, who's working really hard on it, and he's put it in. Got it into the repository in Ubuntu now, so you can, in 12.04 and above, you can just apt-get install Kazam or, Software Center or whatever. It's not perfect, but it's under active development, which can't be said of pretty much any other screencasting app on the Linux desktop. So I'm focusing my attention on Kazam.
Okay, one last quick thing. When are my customizations coming back in Unity? They were the way they were in GNOME 2, such as right-click, add to applets on the panel bar. I mean, is that gone?
What you mean? Icons along the top bar, along the top.
Yeah,
of the
like
screen?
to add like applets, like the weather applet, or how in like 2 years ago in Unity, or not Unity, but in Ubuntu, you could just go to the panel bar, right-click to add the applets, like the weather applet. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, but I have a feeling that was taken out when we went to GNOME 3.
Right, but is that coming back, or is that something that is completely gone?
Well, I think it is back in a way, in that, for example, there's one that shows system information like CPU, memory, swap, and all that kind of stuff. And I've added that one to my system panel.
Okay.
But we call it a different name now, so it's called the indicator area. That whole area in the top right-hand corner of the screen is for what we call indicators. And I've installed that. It's not quite as straightforward as right-click, add to panel, and there's a predefined list of.
That's what I missed. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss that too in some ways, but equally, I am kind of liking the clean desktop, and I quite like not having too much stuff up there. But I can appreciate that other people feel differently. That's fine. So I think I didn't quite answer the question.
Well, that's a fair enough answer. Let's see. Well, thank you. Tanya, how about if you ask a question or a comment?
Well, I'm just wondering where they see Unity taking Ubuntu. I mean, I'm sure everybody's wondering that, right? We hear a lot. I see a lot of press releases and stuff, but I'm just wondering his opinion.
So Mark Shuttleworth, who's the commercial sponsor and design lead for Canonical and Ubuntu, blogged a little while ago that he's made these pronouncements like we're going to have 200 million users in a couple of years, and
that would be amazing.
Well, yeah,
I would love that.
What's he smoking?
Well, it's not that hard, given that we're already well over 20 million. So it's a factor of 10, but that's still even if we went to 200 million, that's a tiny dent in the market, in the Windows market. So I don't think it's that hard. And he also blogged about the fact that by 2014 he wanted to be on other devices, so on the TV, on the tablet, on a phone, that kind of thing. And we've seen some of that in press releases and demonstrations at the Consumer Electronics Show and Mobile World Congress last week, where there was a convergence device and the TV was shown off, and they're both running Ubuntu. So if you think you could buy a TV with Ubuntu on, if you could do that, then that instantly means you could potentially get many millions more users. Okay, they're not using the desktop, but they're still using Ubuntu, and it's still Unity. So perhaps that 200 million target, which is kind of aspirational, but perhaps that could be hit by branching out to other devices like tablets, phones, TVs, fridges, toasters, whatever.
Possibly, sure. Possibly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's an unreasonable aspiration, given, arguably the desktop market is somewhat dying. People don't generally buy desktop PCs anymore. Most people buy laptops, and a lot of people seem to be buying tablets. And that's not everyone, and there are certain parts of the world where you can't afford a tablet, and a laptop is prohibitively expensive. But still, a lot of people are buying them. So it makes sense for us to be in that kind of space as well as Android and iOS and all the other options.
No, I think you're absolutely right. If you somehow get a microchip in the Android smartphone, you could definitely reach that goal, and I, really hope that's possible, because I would love to see Ubuntu in more people's hands.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. I'd love to have a phone that ran Ubuntu that I could, go, hey, look at that, that's running Ubuntu.
Yeah, I saw the videos. They look really cool. I would love to have one when they come out, so. So imagine just carrying my desktop around with me.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, and I saw that article myself, and I just thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Here you've got a phone that has your Ubuntu system on it. You just dock it at home, and then your phone turns into a full-blown computer. How cool is that? I mean, this is really going to bring Linux into the computing world in a big, big way, and I'm being a broadcaster, I'm doing my best to stay on top of the news, and Canonical is really doing a lot of different things. We've got web TV or Ubuntu TV that's coming out soon. And then now we're going to have the handheld portable devices that people are going to be able to use as well. And I'm really pleased with the direction that Canonical is taking.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
Okay. Let's see. IG, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just reading a very interesting article that was pretty much, obviously 1204 is ramping up, and there is sort of a lot going on in the blogosphere around this new release that is going to be sort of like the hallmark, the stable long-term support and all that, and it had a very interesting slant on it in that, and this is something that I've come across a lot, and I really feel like Ubuntu is doing a fantastic job, and you guys are doing a really great job with the design aspect of making this system something that an everyday user can walk up to, muck around with for a bit, and sort of click with it, and it makes sense, and it's very easy, and it looks just gorgeous. But the thing that this article was talking about was just the sphere of apps that are built up around the Linux system, and just sort of the what would be the word, the disconnectedness of the app universe, and that there are so many different app libraries that are all built into Ubuntu, and it has to try and build a compatibility for all of these different libraries and all of these different toolkits. And basically what it's saying is, if we want more users on the Ubuntu side, we really need quality apps and apps that are built with Ubuntu in mind. And people really feel like that's where, for instance, Mac OS X and iOS are really succeeding. It's not so much the platform as it's the apps that are built for the platform. And so long term, once Unity is at a polished state where you guys are happy with it, do you see Ubuntu or Canonical taking on any sort of application development?
That's an excellent question, and I completely agree with you. It is a big issue that if we put a tablet computer out there tomorrow, and I can tell you for now that's not going to happen. If we did, and it ran Ubuntu standard, Ubuntu with Unity, it would probably suck pretty badly for everyone, because the user interface isn't designed for touch. So we've got some work to do there to make it work well on a touch environment. I know a lot of people think that Unity was totally trying to get the tablet interface on the desktop because it's got icons that look a bit like iPhone and Android icons, but that's not really the case. So if we put a tablet out tomorrow, we've got the problem that the user interface isn't ideal for a tablet, but also, as you say, there aren't the apps for it. If you go to the software center and install any number of the many thousands of quality apps there are in the open source world through the software center, most of them won't work very well on a touch screen. They have pop-up dialogues that that aren't appropriate on a touch screen, or they have tiny little buttons that are really fiddly to hit with your finger, especially for someone like me who's got really fat fingers, and my targeting isn't the best. Whereas when you look at something like an iPad or an Android tablet, everything is kind of designed for that purpose and for that device. So there's going to have to be some work done to get some decent apps, or convert existing apps, convert some of the apps that we already know and love, like Thunderbird, like Firefox, like Chromium, and all these apps, so that they work well in a tablet environment. And there's a lot of work to do there, and that's partly the reason why there isn't a decent Ubuntu tablet out there today, because there aren't the applications that support that interface.
Pingcasts, have you tried Ubuntu 12.04?
I have not tried it yet.
Okay.
You should. It's really good.
It is. As a
I've
matter
heard.
of fact, I want to read to you some of the comments that I have received from my podcasts that I put up early this morning. I actually installed this in a virtual machine, and I actually like this so much I'm going to dual boot my computer and run the new Ubuntu 12.04. And here's one of the comments that I received. I actually have the Ubuntu 12.04 Beta 1 fully installed on my hard drive, and I am loving it. It keeps the privacy-minded user at heart, allowing you to check what activities you want monitored and what activities you don't. You can clear bash history and dash history all from one easy spot. The new sound menu is amazing too. The internet is blazing fast, and for a beta, it hasn't crashed once. Best part is Canonical is already pushing out bug fixes. I already had a bunch of updates. Great OS. That was from Live for the Game 1, and there was another one here.
That's nice to hear, but I've had crashes. It's far from perfect. We've got a couple of months left to go until release, and I wouldn't want to give anyone the impression that it's a finished, polished product right now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being honest. I appreciate it.
It's not finished.
Nope, it's still an amazing product. It's performing very well, and I really like the changes you've done in this release. So.
Am I the only one who hasn't tried it?
Apparently.
We know you will. We know you will. Any minute.
Yeah, what's the matter with you guys? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
Yes, I can definitely affirm that it's a very well-performing system. I've been running it as a dual boot ever since it came out, and although I haven't had any system crashes yet, I would definitely say it's actually it's definitely beating out quality-wise from what 11.10 was at the beta point.
And that's something we've focused on, like we said right from the start of 12.04. This release is all about quality, and not just it looks better and it feels better, but equally inside Canonical, the QA process and the testing process for every bit that we make, the Unity, the launcher, and the dash, and all the lenses and all that kind of stuff, all that stuff goes through a huge amount of QA before it leaves the door. And I work with the guys who sit there doing automated tests every time someone commits a new feature or even just a bug fix. There's automated testing going on to make sure that it all still functions as it did previously. And then there's loads of manual tests as well. And we sit there for hours, literally hours, manually going through, pressing buttons and seeing and making sure that the system reacts in the same way that we designed it to react. So there's certainly a big focus on quality. It's not quite there yet, but it's a lot better than previous releases, that's for sure.
And even this early on in the game, it's definitely showing.
Good. That's good to hear.
Nice.
Also,
Yeah.
I'm also really glad that you're listening to the users, because I know a lot of people were disgruntled because they felt like they weren't being listened to. And then you mentioned earlier that you're listening to more of the users' requests and you're taking that into consideration with it. I think is awesome.
Do you know what? There's a popular blog which focuses a lot on Unity. It's called OMG Ubuntu. You've probably heard of it. And
awesome site.
Yes.
I was recently at a Canonical company business event where there was a whole load of developers, hacking away on various projects. And as I walked around, it was interesting to see how many people were not only reading the articles, but also scrolling down and reading the comments on YouTube videos. And, we do read that stuff. I know people think we don't, but we honestly do. And, sometimes, if a comment is just Unity sucks and that's all someone says, then that's not even remotely useful to us. But if someone says, hey, I tried out Unity and when I click here, this breaks and doesn't work, and, we take that on board and see if there's a bug filed and try and work on it and fix it.
Interesting.
And that's something I feel. Yeah, sorry, Spatry. That's something I feel the open source community has, and that's, I think it's a very valuable part of what you guys do.
Now, interestingly enough, I've been keeping up with the news. It looks like there are people working on porting Unity over to Arch Linux. And I'm actually liking the way that Unity has evolved. And this is actually something I would consider using and incorporating into my Arch system, especially if I can get it to work horizontally rather than vertically, and that sort of thing. But as I said, I'm still going to dual boot and run Ubuntu as a secondary operating system. But I really like how it's starting to shape up. I think it's really going in the right direction.
That's certainly a criticism that I've seen leveled a number of times. Is people complain that Unity is Ubuntu only. You only get Unity in the Ubuntu repository and no other distro carries it. And I know there have been attempts made to port it across to Fedora and to Arch, and I think someone tried to port it across to SUSE. But it's not an easy task to do because Unity, the 3D version, is implemented as a Compiz plugin. And I don't think many other distros actually ship up-to-date Compiz in their repositories. So we employ one of the Compiz developers, and he's constantly churning out new versions to keep up with the Unity developers. And so all of this stuff is moving so fast that it doesn't surprise me that it's hard for other distros to carry it in their repositories, because it's a moving target and it's very hard for them.
Well, Well, I have to ask, though, is it really your job to make sure it's working on, the thousands and thousands of other distros out there?
No, well, it's not our job. I mean, it would be good, and,
yeah,
it would be nice.
It would be good, but is it your responsibility? I'd have to, because, it's not your distro.
Well, arguably, I could see an argument where people would say, yes, it is, because the more distros that it's in, the more users it has. The more users it has, the more testing it gets. And the more exposure, it gets, and people don't think that this is Ubuntu just going in its own direction and leaving everyone else. I want to say leaving everyone else behind. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense that we're ahead of everyone, but just leaving what they're doing, going in another direction, if that makes sense. But I don't know. Maybe in the future, and given that we're going to have an LTS, so this is a long-term support release in April, that code base is going to be frozen for that release. So maybe people will pick it up in 12.04 and then port those versions across to other distros. I don't know.
I have a good question that I'd like to ask. Alan, what is Ubuntu or Canonical going to be doing about marketing? Now, we know that we've got all these innovations that Ubuntu or Canonical is bringing to the table. What are they going to do to market this and to bring some competition into the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Ubuntu started in 2004, and throughout all those years, we've relied on the community doing the marketing for us mostly. So we have teams in every country, which we affectionately call LOCO teams, with LOCO standing for local community teams, not LOCO as in,
That's what I thought. You guys are nuts, but okay.
Yeah, that could be argued as well. But they do their local advocacy and marketing, and people give talks like for example, I gave a talk at my local Linux user group near where I live, and I just called it, Unity 0 to Hero, learn how to use it kind of thing. And all I did was plug my laptop into a projector and just show people how to use it. And if that results in some people maybe changing their opinion of Unity and seeing that actually it is usable, it's not a complete mess and it doesn't completely suck, then that's great. And I've done my job in my spare time, speaking to a bunch of like-minded, geeks. But what we don't tend to do is big advertising campaigns in magazines or on TV or anything like that, because A, they are prohibitively expensive. Like, it's ridiculously expensive to get a slot on TV, and we're a global company with a presence in just about every country. So which country do we pick to advertise in? Do we advertise in all of them, or do we just do America, or do we just do Europe, or do we just do England? It's a tricky one, and we just don't have the budget to spend on vast marketing campaigns, which is why we rely on the community doing that for us.
If I can just pop in a comment there, really, when it comes down to, when you look at Apple as a company, they are, a real innovator, as well as, more importantly, their marketing is really what has gotten them as far as they have. Now, obviously, Canonical doesn't have anywhere near the budget that a company like Apple does, but bringing quality, just explanation sort of videos, with every product launch that Apple does, there's always a video or something that they make about that just practically shows off everyday people using these features, and videos like that, I think, even just to put them on YouTube, they can get shared around, and it's the people that are on the internet that are going to be interested in Ubuntu anyway. I mean, at least that's what I've found from experience. And so if people can, if community members like us, YouTubers like us, can point other YouTube viewers to a particular video that's endorsed, made by Canonical, sort of marketing your own product, and there are examples that you guys have put out, which have been pretty good. But yeah, just having a feature or a flagship sort of video that represents what you guys do in a very sort of human way, then I dare say that it would be a fairly easy thing to circulate that around the net with fairly minimal costs.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. That kind of, I don't want to say viral marketing, but the kind of guerrilla marketing that people do on YouTube is very effective. And actually, it's interesting you should say that. I had a meeting about that just this week, about making videos about 1204. And actually, one of the subjects that came up is, golly, don't all screencasting apps in Ubuntu suck? And so yeah, we are looking at that kind of thing.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, we are looking at that. One of the problems is we did have one made for the last release, and one of the guys in the design team made it. And one of the problems with these videos, if you're showing these aspirational videos where you show clips of the desktop and interspersed with a bit of music, and maybe you see someone editing a document, and maybe you see someone chatting on IM, the kind of marketing things that show what the product does without someone sitting and explaining it, telling you. When you make those kind of things, you're appealing to certain people who can relate to what they see on the screen. And if they hear one type of music, it might completely throw them off. Or if they see someone editing a document, they might think, oh, this is for business users. Or if a business person sees someone chatting on Instant Messenger, they might think, well, I don't want that in my corporate environment. So it's very difficult for us to create a one video, one size fits all video that we could show anyone in the world, and they would say, yeah, that looks great, I want to use that. So I think probably what we'll have to do is create a number of these videos and have different personas portrayed in each one of the videos, to highlight different aspects of the desktop and to target different types of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's to be quite frank, that's exactly what Apple does in a sense, having different videos showing different people, different circumstances, different elements of the product that you want to be pushing forward.
But like I say, we don't have the budget to do what Apple do, but we'll try. We'll see what we can do.
Sounds good. If I may give you just a little bit of piece of advice, keep up the terrific work. I love Ubuntu Unity, but please stay away from recommending ATI drivers. Yeah, Spatry knows the story 2 weeks ago when we did the last Linux 18 podcast. I had an issue. Oh, man. Spatry, kiss my curdles, okay? But let me explain briefly what happened, Alan. I downloaded Ubuntu, dual booted on my desktop, and a little dialog box pops up. Hey, there are recommended drivers, hardware drivers, tested by Ubuntu developers. I'm like, oh, okay. Installed it, rebooted, didn't work. Deleted Ubuntu, reinstalled it, and one of the kind subscribers suggested I try the brand new ATI drivers from the ATI website. I'm like, okay, installed that, rebooted, didn't work. I said, you know what? I think I've had enough of this. So for the third time I installed Ubuntu. Yeah, Spatry, yeah, okay. I installed Ubuntu the third time with the open source drivers. No problem. So right now, ATI drivers and the little recommendation, Ubuntu recommendation dialog box can kiss my you-know-what. But that's my rant of the day. Other than that, you guys are doing a terrific job, and really, Unity is one of the technological marvels of the world, and it's free. But that little blip, that just really,
that's interesting. That we it's the word. It's all about the wording, because if you've got an NVIDIA card, then that word recommended. We recommend the binary NVIDIA driver because without it, you're not going to get the full 3D, accelerated experience.
Sure.
But for ATI, using that same wording, we're kind of leading you down a path of failure. Which.
No, really? I never would have guessed. But no, no. I mean, other than that, Ubuntu has been stellar. So
my one recommendation I would say for anyone who has any problems with Ubuntu, we have an amazing community support group, people all around the world who just volunteer their time to answer technical questions, and one of the places that I've found really good for asking questions and getting high quality answers pretty quickly is a website called askubuntu.com.
I second that.
Yes, yeah.
It's brilliant. The guys there just spend, all their time answering questions, curating them, tagging them, marking them as duplicates, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing the amount of work these people do just in their own time. And they even have, canonical people who work on certain products. If we see a question on Ask Ubuntu, say for example, there's a guy who works for Canonical who works on the installer. His name's Colin Watson. He's a complete genius with everything to do with the installer. If I see a question on Ask Ubuntu and I don't know the answer, I know he will, and I'll give him a little poke online and say, can you have a look at this question? And they'll spend their time answering questions as well. And that's another thing that you don't get from Apple and Microsoft. You don't get the people who actually create the product answering your technical questions like one-on-one online. Now, I think that's fantastic.
Yes.
To get to that real sense of community.
I don't think we'd get a consulting engineer from Apple on our show either, so props, major props.
You also don't have the community around it as well. You have all these people who know the Linux system inside and out, can do all these incredible things with it.
Well, there's certainly a community of people who will take your money and fix your computer if you have Apple or Microsoft-based products. Whereas the other way around on Ubuntu, there's plenty of people who don't want your money and will fix your computer for you.
Or they'll just take your money.
Well, I would also like to add, though, everything I learned about Ubuntu and its derivatives, I found on the Ubuntu forums. The forums are fantastic. And, anytime I was looking for an answer, I would just go on Google search and I would just type in Ubuntu and whatever the problem was, and that answer would always come up because, other people have experienced the same issues, and I was able to find those answers quickly and easily. And now I even have a Google custom search that actually polls the just for searching the Ubuntu, the Mint sites, and all the other derivatives of Ubuntu, it allows me to pretty much pull all their sites to find the answers and that sort of thing. So the forums out there are magnificent.
Yeah.
Yes, I would have to agree. By the way, Spatry, a few days ago, we were sending comments back and forth messages, and you mentioned something like, in Arch, you never get a BSOD. You never got a BSOD, a blue screen of death in Arch. Well, I always get well, I shouldn't say always, but I got a BSOD 2 weeks ago in Unity, a bug screen of death. So, yeah. But,
well, let me tell you what. Since I switched to Arch, I have never had even one kernel panic.
Use it a little longer.
Yeah, you need to buy some more wacky hardware.
You're probably right about that. But even then, when I had kernel panics, I usually did something stupid to cause it to happen, like I'd have my TV card plugged in or something like that, and I unplugged it while it was running, and then the kernel would go, but,
right.
I usually had to do, there was something on my end that I was doing that would cause that to happen.
I have to leave here in about 5 minutes to shower and start my day. I have a full schedule besides this, but before I log off, and of course you guys and of course Tanya, you can continue on. But one quick last question, Alan, have you tried or taken a look at Windows 8?
I tried to install it in a VirtualBox VM, but for some reason it just wouldn't boot, so I gave up.
Okay. Yeah, I have installed it. I don't know if you caught the little joke comments before we actually started the show, but Spatry did a little screencast a couple days ago. Now, Spatry is the consummate gentleman. I think he said Windows 8 is a good operating system, but would I use it? No. Let me translate that for you. He starts every show with "Today on Spatry's Cup of Linux" and goes into his little, thing.
Yeah,
Translated. Yeah, good. Translate that. Today on Spatry's Cup of Horse Stable, we have the latest horse dumpings from Microsoft Windows.
And that is exactly what it is. I mean,
Okay.
It's going to be magnificent for touch screens and that sort of thing, but it's going to completely bomb on the desktop. And if I were a complete neophyte, had no computing experience whatsoever, I personally think that the latest edition of Ubuntu would be a lot more attractive to me than this hunk of whatever that Microsoft is cranking out right now.
I completely agree with you.
Let me say this, because I have to leave here in about 4 minutes. You may be absolutely right, but here's my philosophy on this. Last year when Unity came out, and then like around the same time, GNOME Shell, GNOME 3, those are radical changes. And I was probably one of the few Microsoft dual booters defending those new releases. Now, they could have bombed too, but I suspected they would not, and I'm right. With Windows 8, I really liked what I saw. It is really optimized, smartphones, tablets. Of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it was stable in my virtual machine. No hiccups, no blips, none whatsoever. I was floored. Slightly slow, but that's to be expected. But it worked. Everything seemed to work. Well, I didn't try everything, but, switching here, there's a terrific hotkey function on the keyboard. You tap on the super key, and you can flip between the tablet type of interface, with the tiles, hit the key and switch to the somewhat normal desktop that somewhat resembles Windows 7. That is a brilliant move. But I really miss my start orb, the start menu.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because Windows 8 is such a shock, such a jolt. It looks pretty, and if it's stable, fine. But without that simple start menu, I think they are probably going to tick off a lot of Windows users. Maybe even me. I'm not there yet. I'm willing to give this time because it is a beta, to be fair. But the hotkey is brilliant. Hey, if you don't like the new, hit the key, switch to the old, and here's the good old-fashioned start menu where everything works. If they can pull that off, then I think Windows 8 is fine. Will they? I think they will, but I'll wait to the final product to say whether Windows 8 is, stable or horse stable. But for now, it appears stable, but it is a jolt.
One of the problems is, even if people don't like it, there's not a lot of choice. If you go into a computer store, you can buy one of two things: a computer running Windows or a computer running OS 10.
Yes.
And if you're in a corporate environment, you use whatever the IT department have given you. So even though people hate, and people hated Vista and some people hated Windows 7, if the computer that you're using is not controlled by you, and the delivery of the operating system is not controlled by you, but controlled by someone else, then it doesn't really matter if you don't like it or not. You're going to have to get used to it. And this has happened before. When people moved from Windows 3 to Windows 95, and when people moved from Windows 98 to Windows XP, or when people moved to Vista, and there's always going to be some dissent and people complaining and saying, I don't like this. But there's very little they can do, and this is why I'm keen on focusing on us getting a decent desktop on computers in shops and in online retail stores. So we make it as easy as possible for them to transition away from something they don't like.
Listen to your customers, which it appears that you are with 1204. And if anybody from Microsoft is listening to this, I'm telling you as a customer, Mr. Guys of Microsoft, put back the start button.
Just a quick comment on the start orb thing. I think, as best as I can tell, I did a little bit of research on it because I did notice it did tick you off, and it does tick me off mildly as well. But I think the design decision was it's basically, how with GNOME Shell you hit the meta key and you get the overlay with the app launcher. That's basically what is replacing the start menu with the overlay of the Metro tiles.
Right.
So that you hit that meta key, you start typing for your app, you press enter, and there's your application. So I think the functionality from the start menu is going to be in that overlay or the tablet interface, the Metro interface, and that's what they're going to be using as the app launcher. And that's why it's so easy to switch between the two, because they want to have that launcher menu thing built into that overlay. So my guess is you're probably not going to be seeing the start menu. But again, that's just me.
Well,
it's good. Yeah. No, this is good if Microsoft messes up, because then this means more users for us.
True.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Microsoft. But for me, Microsoft Windows 7 has been absolutely brilliant. I don't recall ever seeing a BSOD in Windows 7. I don't ever recall having a virus affect my system. Windows 7 is good, and when something's good or stable, I will say it's stable. But with Windows 8, without the start menu, I think that's borderline horse stable. That with the horse dumps. So,
not to disagree with you, but I work in IT and I've seen many, many viruses on Windows 7. And there's many, and the only reason people stay with it is because the people I support are power users, and they have many software requirements, and they have to stay with Windows, even though they have many complaints about it.
Well, so I'm not saying I haven't gotten viruses, but I haven't gotten. Look, it's Windows. You're gonna get a virus.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten one yet that went through my virus shield. It always picked it up and stopped it. Now, of course, I maintain it. Update it, sometimes I'll switch, like different types, of companies. Sometimes I'll use Avast or Komodo. But in, 3 years, not one single virus has trashed my Windows 7. That's rare.
Pretty good.
But Microsoft Vista was horse stable. They know it. They cleaned it up with Windows 7. I'll give them credit. With Unity, like in the beginning, it wasn't quite there. But with 1204, Alan, you guys, terrific job with Windows 8. We'll see. It could turn out to be horse stable. I prefer to be fair, just like I've been fair with Unity and GNOME 3 and wait till the end. With Unity and GNOME 3, I like what I see. With Windows 8, I think I will love what I see, but we shall wait and see. All right. I need to log off. Guys, Tanya, This has been terrific. We need to do it again. Alan, if you can get Windows 8 working, please come on the next show and let me know if it's stable or horse stable, because I'm dying to hear what Spatry has to say about this. So,
do you know what? Since I started working for Canonical 3 months ago, and I haven't touched a Windows machine since, I'm quite happy about that.
My hat's off to you, sir.
I haven't booted into my Windows system in ages. I don't boot into it very much.
all right, Spatry, I need to have you take over.
No
Thank
problem.
you. All this has been, thank you. This has been terrific. Let's definitely do it again. And as I like to end my screencast, I will catch all you guys and Tanya sometime in the future. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right, Spatry, I'll catch you probably sometime tonight on Skype. Let me know how things go. And,
No problem.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I can say that I want to say about a month or two after I switched to Linux that I completely wiped my NTFS partition, and I've actually been running all of my Windows applications natively using Wine. And Wine has really come a long way, and I found that I really don't need Windows anymore. And as a matter of fact, as time has progressed, I have been switching to the Linux alternatives, and I've been very happy with them. When you look at how, for instance, the beta release of Windows 8 came out, that was 3.3 gigs in file size to download, and you really don't get much with it. I've seen Linux distributions that are 300 megs in file size that offered more than what Windows 8 offered, and specifically, the day before I did my review on Windows 8, I did a review on the Android operating system, and it had more applications than the Windows 8. So, I mean, I think this is really attractive to users, the fact that you can download a nice Linux distribution that's going to have all your productivity software pre-installed with it, and in less time than it's going to take for you to install Windows, reboot, install drivers, reboot, search the internet for application A, install, reboot, rinse and repeat, as Pingcasts likes to always say. So I mean, this is a really, what Linux has brought to the table is really convenient, and as show hosts ourselves, it's our job to, make people aware of these innovations that are available, that, the community has put all of their time and effort to and is freely giving this away to people. It's magnificent.
No, absolutely agree with you. Yes, this is an amazing operating system. And I think if people just took a look at it and got to know it a little bit better, they would totally embrace it. But I think it's just not in the limelight. It's not getting much press. Like IG was saying, right? It would be nice to have some videos to pass around. But I know the budget is scarce, so.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy task, and you're going to have to probably deal with anti-competitive tactics from other big companies.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they have people just flooding YouTube with, these Linux stinks and, that sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, the software giants are going to do everything in their power to maintain desktop superiority. They're going to do everything they can to muscle their way into the mobile markets, even though we have one major player out there who doesn't even have much of anything in the mobile market. I'm just dying to see what kind of tactics they're going to be employing to shove their products down people's throats. But at the end of the day, it's all about choice, and the end user is going to decide for themselves what they like the best, and
well, they can if they can buy a machine with the alternatives on. I just come back to that. The most important thing for me is that we get a quality product, and it's a product that the manufacturers actually want to put on their machines. So you can go to Dell's website or HP's website or whoever, buy a PC and just choose to have something other than Windows if you want to.
And is that sorry to jump in there, but is that something that you are looking at in the future? Because I mean, I really think having the ability to just select Ubuntu as an option on a lot of major manufacturers, obviously that would require you guys to be testing a lot of different machines, even if you just did have a select few with each manufacturer for hardware compatibility and the rest. But is that something that you eventually see chasing? Is more OEM installs?
We already do. We have a team who work with OEMs like Dell and others to ensure that our software works on their hardware. And, we feed back bug fixes to the relevant upstream projects when something needs fixing or, So right now there's, 4 laptops you can buy from Dell USA that all have Ubuntu on them.
Yes, I have seen them. Yeah.
We'd like that range to be wider, but it's somewhat out of our control. The OEMs decide, and in some cases the head of each region decides what they want to put in their store. So for you guys, if you go to the US Dell store, you'll see 4 laptops. If I go to the UK Dell store, there's no laptops. I think there might be one laptop that runs Ubuntu. So, and that's down to the region. They choose what they think will sell in their region. So it's not quite as straightforward as we could say we've tested every single machine. I mean, we've tested most of them, but even if we test them all and they all work fine, it's out of our control as to whether they actually sell them for us.
And I guess one more question in that direction, and that is, are we ever going to see an Ubuntu book of sorts, an Ubuntu laptop that's branded by you guys?
I don't know. That's something that will be inside Mark Shuttleworth's head as to whether that's going to happen. That's a decision that he and Jane Silber, the CEO, would likely decide. I can't see that happening anytime soon because the margins are so tiny on hardware that you have to ship bazillions of them to make any kind of profit, and you have to be tied into some kind of store to make ongoing profit from the sales of books or music or whatever it is you're selling. So I think it's more likely that you'll see more hardware vendors signing up and having Ubuntu as a pre-install.
Okay, completely understandable. We'll get the 200 million users first, and then we'll chase the Ubuntu book.
Exactly.
Let's not forget about System 76. They're also selling Ubuntu computers.
Yeah, there's a few smaller vendors around the world who sell computers with Ubuntu pre-installed. System 76 are great. They've got a nice range. It's an attractive website. It's they're decent prices. But unfortunately, the average Joe in the street walks into, I don't know, in the US, Best Buy, and over here it would be PC World or somewhere. The big box shifting computer stores. I know my father-in-law just recently bought a laptop, and his first reaction, even though he knows he can buy them online and he could go to Amazon or whatever and buy a laptop, his first reaction was to walk into a shop and physically touch the laptops and look at the specs, despite the fact that he could look at the specs of all of them online. He felt that it would be better for him if he walked around the shop. And those are the 200 million. It's those kinds of people that do that kind of thing, who walk into a shop and buy a computer. And for us geeks, we'd be like, why don't you build one? Or, why don't you go to this shop online? Or why don't you go to that shop online? Why are you... Because there's a premium, when you go to a bricks and mortar shop, it's more expensive often than online. That's less so these days. But still, they try to sell you the warranty and all that kind of stuff. So I think we do need to target, despite it being good that there are smaller manufacturers doing that kind of thing, we still need to target the big companies, simply because they are already established in the market and they have the infrastructure to put millions of them in shops all around the world.
That's it. And so, are you wanting to hopefully adopt the same sort of model with Ubuntu TV, Ubuntu for Android, more providing a service that manufacturers can come to you and use, as opposed to trying to push your own wagon, as it were?
Yeah, and we've seen there are feelings in the market space. It seems that people don't necessarily want to put Android on their devices. Like they feel like maybe Google is becoming a partner that they don't necessarily feel comfortable being with, whereas they might be more comfortable putting Ubuntu on their TV or on their tablet or on their phone or whatever. So we need to make the most of that, anti-Google feeling if we can, I guess.
Absolutely.
But at any rate, I feel that in just by the end of this year, we're going to be seeing Ubuntu doing a lot of things, and it's slowly but surely infiltrating its way into the marketplace, and it is going to bring competition out there. And it wouldn't surprise me, though, if by the end of this year, maybe hopefully next year, we might be able to start seeing Ubuntu on the store shelves. That would be refreshing to see that.
Yeah, I would like to see that. The group within Canonical that I work for are working on things like Ubuntu TV and the convergence device that you saw last week. And I know they're working really hard to get these products ready for market, because they're not. What you've seen so far is a demo. It's a working product, but it's not ready to go into customers' hands yet. So, but they're working really hard to make that happen. And I don't know whether that will happen this year or next year, or we'll carry on working at it until it's right. And that's the other thing is, I know Mark Shuttleworth doesn't want to release products before they're ready. I know people in the open source world believe in release early, release often, but for a consumer product like a TV or a phone or a tablet, it really has to be good to put it in a shop. You can't put a second grade thing in and expect to get mass market adoption. It isn't going to happen. So I wouldn't expect to see it any time like really soon. It's got to be really ready before it goes out.
In the meantime, the rest of us can just arm ourselves with pocket loads of live USB sticks, go down to the local PC store, pick out the most attractive laptops, and boot up on all of them and get people asking questions. And I have done that.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And there's actually something called PC hijacking, where people actually go into these shops, and what they do is they bring a pocket full of live CDs, and on the actual disc itself, it basically explains this is non-destructive, it's not writing anything to the hard drive, and these people go into the stores, and they actually boot these operating systems on the brand new computers and just leave them running, so people can walk up and have a look at them. But something else I wanted to touch on here is the fact that, for instance, we know that Microsoft, for instance, every time it releases a new product, it's never ready on the day it ships, But the thing is, my experience is on the day that most Linux distributions, and I say most Linux distributions that I've tried, the day that they ship, they work. And they work pretty well. I've seen a few that, were not so well. But, with the Microsoft, though, I've seen a number of their installments. For example, the Millennium Editions, the Vistas, those weren't ready on the release date, and I can tell you I was very displeased with them. So
it's funny, we how Ubuntu releases on a specific date, and often news sites will tell you like the day before that it's already done, and you could get the ISO from some website here or there, and it's the final release, and that's all you need. And usually that's roughly true. The ISO image that exists on the server a couple of days before release is the release candidate and may well end up being the release. But on more than one occasion, we've found proper catastrophic bugs in the release on the day or the day before it comes out, and we've had to respin all of the ISO images and then repopulate all of the mirrors. And that's not a small undertaking. Luckily, these are ISO images on servers. They're not CDs that we've sent out to customers or anything. But we certainly do try and take care that the product that goes out isn't, massively riddled with bugs.
Now, something that's very interesting to me, and this is something that I found refreshing, that Ubuntu or Canonical has decided to extend their long-term releases for now 5 years, I believe. And this will be welcoming to a lot of European governments and other business sectors out there that are looking for a nice stable release that they're not going, that they'll be able to actually keep for several years. And
and one of the problems with that, there's a trade-off with that. If you make a CD in April 2012, there are new revisions of CPUs and chipsets that go with CPUs. Intel rev a new CPU every year or every other year or so, and so we have to be mindful of that, because if we had a CD that was created 3 years ago, it's possible that CD won't work on the very latest hardware. So it's going to be released in April, but then we're going to support it with point releases after that. So you'll get 12.04 in April, and then you'll get 12.04.1 a few months later, and 12.04.2, which will have newer kernels in it. So hopefully we'll be able to support people for 5 years on the desktop and the laptop and on the server as well.
And this will also send the kernel updates and everything that they need, correct?
Yeah, the point releases contain kernel fixes. It's usually hardware enablement. So when Intel come out with their brand new, whatever the next thing after the Core i7 will be, the next chipset, we have to put kernel support in there, and sometimes we have to backport that from the next version of the kernel, because what we don't do is, if this release of Ubuntu ships with Linux 3.2, we don't make the CD and then later on deliver you 3.3 or 3.4 of the kernel. We have to take the code that's been put in 3.3 and 3.4 and backport it into 3.2, which is quite an undertaking, and the kernel team at Canonical, manage that process.
Okay, wonderful. Does anybody else have any other questions?
He answered all my questions.
Pingcasts, any questions?
Well, you guys are making that, the new HUD thing?
Yes.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that? I looked at it. It looks kind of reminding me of Copper.
It's so the idea behind it is it's not designed as a system for launching applications. That's the first thing. So we have the dash, which is when you press the super key, the Windows key, the dash appears, and then if you want to search for an application, you just type in FI and you get Firefox, for example. But once you're actually in an application, many of them have a myriad of menus with lots of different levels deep, and often it's actually quite painful to find the specific thing in the menu that you're looking for. I've been using Firefox for years, and I can still never remember where certain things are in the menus. And so the idea of the HUD is that it makes it easier, because rather than you as a human searching through the menu, the computer searches through the menu for you. So if you're searching for, the downloads option in Firefox, you'd press the key that brings up the HUD, and you just start typing downloads, because that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for the tools menu or the thing that's in the tools menu. You're looking for downloads. That's the thing you want to get to. So you just tap the Alt key, a box pops up, you type in downloads, and it has indexed all the menus of all the currently open applications, including all the indicators in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And so any of those menus, it will know the contents of all of them, so that you can very quickly navigate to any item in a menu. And that's most useful in applications that have very deep menu structures, like the GIMP or Inkscape or other, really busy, creative applications that have lots of menu options. It's really most useful in those kind of things.
Thank you for shedding light on that. I was wondering what that was. I was playing around because I was playing around in the beta yesterday, and I was reading somewhere that you just press the Alt key and it brings up the HUD and that sort of thing. But apparently I didn't have any applications open, and so now that you have explained that, now I can sit down and actually play with this later and try it out and give it a test run. So
yeah, it makes less sense when you have no applications open. If you just press Alt, you could type shutdown, for example, if you press Alt, because the only thing you've got open is all the indicators in the top right, and so it will search those. So if you've got nothing open, you press Alt and you type shut, it will find the shutdown option, and then you press Enter and it will shut your laptop down.
Wonderful.
But if you've got an application open like Thunderbird and you want to create a new mail, you could press Alt and then type new, and it will find the create new mail menu option, and off you go. That's the theory behind it.
That is magnificent, and that will increase the usability of the operating system. So that sounds like a really nice touch that's been added there.
Yeah, and in future, it may well be that if we get speech recognition in Ubuntu, then in the future you press a key and type down and say the word download, and it finds the menu option for you, rather than you having to actually type the thing in. Maybe, I don't know.
Now, I imagine that would be something that probably wouldn't be too difficult to implement. I already have an Android phone, and the thing is, all I have to do is just say, call so-and-so, and my phone dials them out without having to even pick a number out or anything like that. So the technology is there already.
Yeah, I don't know whether there are many. I know there are some open source projects that do speech recognition, and I don't know whether they're ready for prime time, because what you've got to factor in is on a phone there's a fairly limited set of things you're going to ask it to do. Whereas when you've got an entire repository of applications, each of which has their own menu, each of which is a piece of text that the developer wrote, that could be any word in any language, because these are all fully translated applications, it becomes an awful lot harder.
Yeah, I can imagine that could be a developer nightmare waiting to happen.
But someone's going to have that fixed at some point, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Well, with that, gentlemen, I shall have to take my leave. Thank you very much for having me on the show this morning, and I definitely appreciate hearing all the comments and the topics floating around, and thank you, Alan, also for showing up and answering all of our questions. But with that, I shall have to let you all go, and thank you for having me on the show once again.
All right, and welcome once again, Infinitely Galactic. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. We really appreciate you being here. We look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
No worries. I shall be here.
All right, you take care.
Cheers, bye.
Catch you later.
Have a good day.
Take care.
We've literally been spanning the globe here for all of the listeners. We've got Tanya in California. Pingcasts and I are on the East Coast. And so let me see. It's probably, it's 9:30 here Eastern time, so it's probably 5:30 in the morning where Tanya is. And then it's probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon where Alan is, and or 2:30 in the afternoon where Alan is. And Infinitely Galactic that just signed off, it's 1:30 or 2:30 in the morning for him.
Wow.
So we've literally, this one, we've really been challenged by multiple time zones, and that's probably why we weren't able to get as many guests on the show that we were hoping for this time around. So I'll be working with the other show hosts in the future to work out a better time frame so that we can get better participation and that sort of thing, because these chats are really enjoyed by the public and that sort of thing, and they keep asking us for more. So this is really engaging and entertaining the public and that sort of thing. Yeah, and they absolutely love it. Now, for me also, I'm running out of time as well. I have some daily business and that sort of thing I have to get going on here.
Sure. So I have 2 children who need me to help them with their homework. So
understood completely. So does anybody have any final comments that they'd like to make before we close this?
I just really want to thank him for answering all our questions. It was really great listening to you.
Oh, thanks. No problem. And I'd love to come on again anytime, and if you have any more questions, or if you have, and I realise on this occasion it was all pretty positive, and there was very little we hate Ubuntu, we hate Canonical, and I'm happy for if you have any listeners or other podcasters who have a less positive view, I'm happy to discuss stuff with them as well, so that we get the full rounded view, and it's not all just happy clappy Ubuntu is great.
Yeah, definitely. And for one reason, I was really hoping that Linux for You and Me was going to make it to this show, because he is definitely one of the largest Ubuntu haters, that I know of. And so it would have been really nice to get his point of view on that, but I know he said he had something else to take care of today and he couldn't join us, but you can bet we will eventually get him on the show and get you two in the same room. We will hand you each some boxing gloves and let you guys duke it out. I think it would be great for the listeners, and I'm sure it will make for an invigorating conversation, to say the least. I might even have to pull out the bleep button if the conversation gets a little bit too much for our viewers and that sort of thing. All right, well, to everybody who's listening, I'd like to thank you all for listening in on our show. I'd like to thank Alan Pope for joining us. It's been a magnificent conversation. Tanya, SysAdmGirl, thank you. Pingcasts, thank you. Total OS Today, thank you. Infinitely Galactic, thank you. And thank all of you for listening to yet another fabulous TosCasts podcast. We'll probably be back in about 2 weeks with another show, and then of course I'll be doing some one-on-one shows as well with some other different show hosts and that sort of thing, so you'll definitely want to stick around on all of these channels. Every channel that has been represented here has wonderful content that is well worth your time, and you will see all that information up on the screen. I'd like to thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time.